Shedeur Sanders didn't ask for this. What should have been a developmental season has turned into a national drama, not because of his performance, but because Jerry Jones wants him in a Cowboys uniform. The noise isn't coming from highlight reels. It's being orchestrated from boardrooms, press leaks, and late-night calls with executives. Jones sees Sanders as more than a quarterback. He sees a brand, a storyline, a legacy-affirming move. And now, despite having never started an NFL game, Sanders is the central figure in one of the league's most polarizing power plays. Lost in the headlines is a simple truth. Sanders just wants to play football. But in the NFL's modern ecosystem, talent isn't enough. Narrative is currency. Jones is building one with Sanders at the center, forcing Cleveland to either engage or retreat. The Browns' internal fractures are widening as media pressures, fan speculation, and branding opportunities all collide. For Sanders, this saga may define his career before he's even had a chance to shape it himself. Jerry Jones has never been subtle. He's not a behind-the-scenes kind of owner. He's not the quiet type who lets his GM handle the headlines. No, Jerry Jones is the showrunner, the lead actor, and the executive producer of the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, as he never lets us forget. But even for someone who thrives on spectacle, his rumored pursuit of Shedeur Sanders is on another level. This isn't just a potential trade. It's a full-blown power play designed to make history, not just football news. The reports say it all. Jerry Jones is scheming to land Shedeur Sanders. Not next year. Not eventually. Now. And the way it's being framed? It's not about strategy. It's about legacy. The Cowboys owner is pushing to flip the NFL on its head, sacrificing conventional planning in favor of a moment so audacious it could change the course of a league. Insiders say Jones is willing to put everything on the table: first-round picks, big-name talent, even his own standing in league circles. Because to him, this isn't just about building a winning roster. It's about being remembered. And Shedeur Sanders is the piece he wants to build that memory around. The Cleveland Browns, meanwhile, are caught in the crossfire. They hold Sanders now, and what should be a proud, stable situation has reportedly devolved into internal chaos. The team can't seem to decide what Sanders means to them. Is he their future? Their brand? Their ticket to the postseason? Or their ticket to a high-value payday? One part of the organization wants to invest in him. The other sees an opportunity to sell high. This uncertainty has created an opening. And if there's one thing Jerry Jones knows how to do, it's slip into the cracks. He's reportedly running the kind of operation that makes league executives squirm. Off-record talks, rumored secret meetings, leaked whispers to friendly media outlets. It's a kind of campaign that feels more like a political run than a player acquisition. And it's no accident. This is how Jerry wins, by shaping public perception before a deal is ever official. That's what makes this story different from your average trade rumor. This isn't a GM quietly working the phones. This is a billionaire orchestrating chaos with surgical precision. While Cleveland tries to keep their internal mess under control, Jones is already positioning the Cowboys as the rightful destination. He's turning a maybe into an inevitability. And the league? The league is trying to hold it all together. Publicly, they're saying very little. But behind the scenes, the alarms are ringing. Tampering concerns are already bubbling up. There's growing frustration over how much noise this has created. The NFL likes clean stories, tidy trades, mutual agreements, and official statements. This is everything the league doesn't want. Messy, loud, dramatic, and utterly off-script. But Jones has never followed the script. He's been bending league norms for decades. He knows how to navigate the gray areas. And right now, he's pressing every button he can. Because for Jerry, this isn't about rules. It's about myth-making. He's not just looking for a quarterback. He's looking for a legacy-defining move. He wants to be the man who brought a rising star to the biggest stage in the sport, and in doing so, rewrote NFL history one last time. He's not chasing wins. He's chasing immortality. And Shedeur? Shedeur's the key to it all. The son of Deion Sanders has become more than just a talented quarterback. He's a symbol. calm under pressure.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Marketable, young, poised. His name sells jerseys. His image drives engagement. His potential stretches far beyond the stat sheet. And Jerry Jones wants to make him the face of the Cowboys, the centerpiece of a franchise revival, the final act in his quest for football greatness. But let's not pretend this is a fair process for Sanders. He's reportedly caught in a whirlwind he didn't create. He didn't ask to be traded. He didn't lobby for attention. Yet here he is, positioned like a pawn in a billionaire's game. And the longer this saga drags out, the more his football career becomes about everything but football. He's the unwitting star of a drama that stretches far beyond the field. And while the media swarms and the headlines explode and fans from Dallas to Cleveland fight over what his future should look like, Shedeur is stuck playing catch-up. No matter what he says or does, the narrative is already ahead of him. Every game, every throw, every offhand comment is being dissected for clues. Is he staying? Is he leaving? Does he want this? None of those questions have simple answers. But that hasn't stopped Jones from selling his version of the story. Meanwhile, Cleveland is spiraling. The internal power struggle has reportedly fractured trust across the front office. One side wants to develop Sanders into a long-term franchise leader. The other side sees a rare opportunity to capitalize on his marketability while demand is high. But by hesitating, they've allowed this situation to explode into a public spectacle. And in that void, Jones is thriving. He's not waiting for the Browns to make a decision. He's turning up the heat. Slowly, deliberately, and always with one eye on the media. The longer this drags out, the more pressure mounts, not just on Cleveland, but on the NFL to step in. But what can they really do? This is the core of the problem. The league wants control, but it's losing its grip to owners who understand how to manipulate attention. Jerry Jones isn't operating in secret. He's turning the process into a public performance. And as long as the cameras are rolling, he's winning. Because no matter how this ends, the spectacle itself is a victory for him. If he lands Sanders, he becomes the man who changed everything. The architect of the boldest move in modern NFL history. If the trade falls apart, he's still the center of the league's biggest off-field story. Either way, he keeps the Cowboys relevant. He keeps himself relevant. And that's the real endgame here. It's not just about championships. It's about permanence. Jerry Jones wants his name etched into the DNA of the league forever. And this is how he's trying to do it, by pulling off a trade so massive, so wild, so disruptive, that no one could talk about anything else. But it comes at a cost. For Shedeur Sanders, it means being treated less like a player and more like a storyline. For the Browns, it's exposing fractures in leadership they may never recover from. For the NFL, it's a wake-up call. The old systems of control are breaking down. The rules are bending. And if the league doesn't act, this won't be the last time a powerful owner writes his own version of how football is supposed to work. Right now, Jerry Jones is writing that version in real time. And everyone else is just reacting. If you've been following every twist and turn in this story, every leak, every quote, every cryptic report, hit that like button. Share it with someone still trying to figure out how we got here. And subscribe, because no matter where this story lands, it's going to define the NFL's next era. What do you think? Is Jerry a genius rewriting the playbook? Or is this the beginning of a meltdown the league won't recover from? Let us know. Let's stop pretending this is just about football. Because at this point, the Shedeur Sanders saga is no longer a sports story. It's a power story. A legacy story. A story about how far one man is willing to go to make himself bigger than the league he helped shape. Jerry Jones has always been loud, unapologetic, and larger than life. But what he's doing now, this is next level. He's orchestrating a spectacle so intense, so relentless, and so soaked in legacy obsession that the NFL itself is struggling to keep its composure. This entire narrative hinges on one person, Shedeur Sanders, a quarterback who just entered the league, and somehow became the most fought-over figure in the game. Not for what he's done, but for what he represents. To Jerry, Shedeur isn't just the next big thing. He's the final puzzle piece in a decades-long attempt to immortalize himself. Not as an owner, not as a businessman, but as the architect of a cultural dynasty. Jerry's not chasing rings anymore. He's chasing myth. And Shedeur? He's stuck in the middle of it. The Browns, on the other hand, have never looked more exposed. For a team that finally landed what looked like a long-term answer at quarterback, they've quickly turned that win into chaos. This isn't just internal disagreement, it's a full-on identity crisis. They're not sure if they're building a team or selling a brand. And that indecision is fatal. Because when Jerry Jones smells hesitation, he doesn't wait. He pushes. He manipulates. He reshapes the narrative until it fits his version of events. That's what he's been doing here. Through backchannels, whispers, and media leaks, Jerry has slowly framed Shedeur as a cowboy in waiting. Every quote from Jones, every nod from a media, every anonymous source that floats out into the public, it's all working toward the same goal, making a deal feel inevitable. Not official, not confirmed, just inevitable. And that perception is everything. It puts pressure on Cleveland to act before they're ready. It puts pressure on Shedeur, who now has to carry the weight of a potential blockbuster move he never asked for. And it puts pressure on the league, which now looks either too weak to regulate its owners or too complicit to care. Let's be honest, the NFL doesn't want this. Not like this. They want clean trades, strategic moves, and orderly press releases. They want player movement to feel like business, not like warfare. But Jones isn't playing business. He's playing empire. And this move, this theater, isn't just about winning headlines. It's about proving that Jerry Jones can still bend the NFL to his will. And the scariest part? So far, he's succeeding. The Browns are rattled. They're leaking confidence from the top down. Front office voices are reportedly split. Coaches are uneasy. No one knows which direction they're supposed to follow. And all of this, all of it, plays right into Jerry's hands. Because the longer Cleveland stalls, the louder the Cowboys get. The bolder Jerry becomes. And the closer this whole spectacle inches toward reality. There's a reason people are calling this Shakespearean. It's not just the betrayal and ambition. It's the sheer theatrical scale of it. Jerry isn't just pulling strings behind the curtain. He's doing it under the spotlight, with the volume turned all the way up. He's leaking rumors like dialogue. He's holding informal talks that conveniently become public. He's creating just enough noise to rattle the system without triggering formal intervention. And the NFL? Frozen. Because what do? Open an investigation into the most influential owner in the league? Accuse him of tampering when all he's done is talk? He hasn't made a public offer. He hasn't broken any rules outright. He's just doing what Jerry Jones always does. Everything just enough to cause chaos without crossing the line. And in that gray zone he thrives. But this isn't without risk. Because if he pushes too far, if this deal happens and it doesn't pan out, he won't just hurt the Cowboys' chances. He'll cement the final years of his reign as reckless, as desperate, as the tragic final act of a man who wanted so badly to be remembered that he burned everything else down in the process. Because let's not forget what he's reportedly willing to give up: multiple first-round picks, franchise talent, control of the team's future, all for one player. A player who, yes, is talented, yes, is marketable, but also young, inexperienced, unproven. This is a gamble. A full-blown all-in, chips on the table, no turning back move. And that's the point. Jerry's not hedging. He's not playing for a safe return on investment. He's playing for the legacy headline. He wants to be the guy who made Shedeur Sanders a superstar, who saw it before anyone else, who moved heaven and earth to bring him to Dallas. And if he's right, it's legend. But if he's wrong, it's disaster. And not just for Dallas, for Shedeur, for Cleveland, and for the NFL. Because the moment this trade becomes real, the floodgates open. Other owners will take notes. Other agents will look to create spectacle. Other players will be turned into symbols instead of athletes. And suddenly, the line between football and full-blown entertainment will blur even further. We're not talking about building a team anymore. We're talking about building narratives. Jerry Jones is showing that with enough influence, enough media control, and enough ambition, you don't have to follow the rules. You can just rewrite them. And that's terrifying for a league that relies on the illusion of fairness. Because if Jerry can pull this off without consequence, what's stopping the next owner? What's stopping the NFL from becoming less of a league and more of a billionaire battleground, where every team is just a vehicle for legacy creation? That's the real risk here. Not the picks, not the players, not even the reputation. It's the precedent. And right now, that precedent is being tested like never before. So where does this leave Shedeur? Stuck. He's the center of a storm he didn't create. He didn't ask for this attention. He didn't lobby for a trade. But now, he's being viewed as the centerpiece of a seismic shift in league politics. And no matter what happens next, his name is already in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. If he stays in Cleveland, there will be questions about trust, loyalty, and what almost happened. If he goes to Dallas, he inherits a mountain of expectations, pressure, and legacy weight that no rookie should ever have to carry. Either way, he's not just a player anymore. He's a symbol, a pawn in a game far bigger than himself. And that's the cost of this kind of spectacle. It chews people up. It turns real careers into headlines. It turns young athletes into mythology before they've even had a chance to become men. That's the story here. Not just Jerry's ego. Not just Cleveland's dysfunction. Not just the league's silence. It's what happens when power goes unchecked. When narrative overtakes strategy. When legacy outweighs logic. This isn't about a trade. It's about what the NFL is becoming and what it's willing to tolerate to keep the show going. Here's the truth nobody in the NFL front office wants to admit. Jerry Jones just exposed the league's soft underbelly. Because what we're witnessing right now, this high-stakes, headline-chasing pursuit of Shedeur Sanders, isn't an isolated incident. It's not just Jerry being Jerry. This is a magnifying glass held up to the NFL's biggest vulnerability: unchecked ownership power mixed with modern media manipulation. The NFL has spent decades trying to preserve the illusion of competitive balance. The draft order, the salary cap, tampering rules. It's all designed to make it look like every team starts on equal footing. That what happens on the field is a product of strategy, coaching, and execution. But this whole Shedeur Sanders situation is making it painfully obvious that, in the end, the ones pulling the strings aren't coaches or scouts. They're owners with billion-dollar agendas. And no one does that better or louder than Jerry Jones. The league wants to pretend he's just a passionate owner who can't help himself. But there's nothing impulsive about what Jerry's doing here. This isn't off the cuff. It's orchestrated, calculated. The leaks to media outlets, the timing of his public comments, the silence from the Cowboys' front office, it all fits. This is the blueprint for how you destabilize a franchise from the outside while keeping your own hands clean. Cleveland, meanwhile, looks like they've been hit by a truck they didn't see coming. One week, they're showcasing a talented young quarterback with a promising future. The next, they're in damage control mode, fielding calls from reporters, managing internal tensions, and trying to reassure a fan base that's already skeptical. That kind of volatility doesn't come from nowhere. It comes when you've lost control of the narrative. And Jerry didn't just take that control. He weaponized it. That's what makes this saga so fascinating and so dangerous. Because Jerry Jones isn't just trying to win the trade. He's trying to win the story. He knows that if he controls the narrative, the pressure mounts on Cleveland. The whispers grow. The media turns. The fan base fractures. And, eventually, the Browns might convince themselves that trading Shedeur is the best move, just to shut the whole thing down. Even if it isn't. Even if it's the worst mistake they could make. That's legacy warfare. That's what Jerry's really fighting for. Not just a player, not just a roster upgrade, but the kind of myth-making move that cements him in history, even if it scorches the league around him. He's already built the stadium. He's already created the brand. But championships? That's the piece that's eluded him since the 90s. And Shedeur Sanders? He's the fresh hope, the wild card, the next chapter. Not because of what he's done, but because of what Jerry believes he can become under the brightest lights, in the most visible jersey in sports. But here's where it gets complicated. Because if Shedeur actually ends up in Dallas, he doesn't just become a quarterback. He becomes a symbol of Jerry's empire. A walking monument to a billionaire's vision of football as a media spectacle. And that kind of weight? That breaks players. Not physically, but mentally, emotionally. He'll be expected to save the franchise, lead the league, and prove that every move Jerry made was justified. That's not development. That's a pressure cooker. And that's why this deal, if it happens, could be catastrophic for everyone involved. The Browns? They'll be remembered not as a team that maximized a young star, but as the franchise that fumbled the bag again. The one that couldn't hold onto its future. That collapsed under outside pressure. And that kind of perception doesn't go away. It lingers. It infects locker rooms. It sours fan bases. It rewrites history. The league? They'll have to answer for how this happened under their watch. For how one owner was able to steer a public campaign toward a specific player without facing real consequences. For how their so-called competitive balance was steamrolled by a single narrative, fueled by ego and ambition. And Jerry? If it doesn't work, if Shedeur struggles, if the Cowboys falter, if the gamble goes bust, then Jerry's final act won't be remembered as heroic. It'll be remembered as hubris. A man who flew too close to the sun with a camera crew in tow. But if it does work, then Jerry wins everything. Control, legacy, myth. That's what makes this story so compelling. There's no middle ground. No soft landing. It's either the boldest masterstroke in NFL history or the most chaotic meltdown in years. And Shedeur? He's stuck playing out a script he didn't write. There's a reason people are calling him a pawn in a billionaire's chess match. Because that's how he's being treated. His talent is undeniable. His calm, his focus, his leadership, they're all real. But none of that is being talked about right now. Not because it doesn't matter, but because the drama is louder. And in Jerry's NFL, the loudest story wins. So what does the league do now? Do they finally step in? Quietly warn Jerry behind closed doors? Pretend this never happened? Or do they accept that this is where the league is headed? Where owners play narrative chess while coaches and players scramble to keep up? Because this isn't just about Jerry anymore. It's about what happens when the balance tips. When the league starts to revolve around legacy moves instead of game plans. When the power shifts so heavily toward ownership that no rulebook can contain it. We're already seeing it. We're seeing it in the way this story has consumed every NFL conversation for weeks. In the way every other quarterback now gets compared to Shedeur, not for performance, but for branding potential. In the way fans are more focused on where he'll go than how he's developing. That's not just Jerry's doing. It's a symptom of a league that's changed. A league that rewards spectacle, that thrives on disruption, that lets the loudest voices drive the story, no matter the cost. So if Jerry gets what he wants, don't be surprised if this becomes the new normal. If the next wave of owners decide that subtlety is dead. That PR campaigns matter more than scouting reports. That legacy isn't earned, it's manufactured. And if that happens, then Shedeur Sanders won't be the last player caught in a spectacle like this. He'll be the prototype. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a trade rumor. It's a turning point. Hit that like button if you see it too. Share this with someone still thinking the NFL runs on balance sheets and playbooks. And don't forget to subscribe. Because if Jerry pulls this off, or if it all falls apart, it won't just be a moment. It'll be history. And you're going to want front row seats. Let us know, did Jerry just change the league forever? Or is this the final act of a legacy slipping out of his grasp?